everyone. I'm Maureen Droney with the Recording Academy, Producers and Engineers Wing. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Mix. Today, we'll be delving into Sony 360 reality audio with Hiroyuki Komuro and Gus Skinas. Now, Hiro has worked for Sony for more than 30 years, most of that time developing and introducing new formats and technologies for the professional audio industry, starting with CD recordable media and CD mastering systems in the mid-1990s, followed by DSD Super Audio CD in the 2000s and high-resolution audio in the 2010s. You can see a theme here. Hiro has a calling, and it's a true passion for sound. Currently, he's in charge of promotion for 360 reality audio, mainly on the content creation side for producers and engineers, as well as studios, record companies, and music services. Gus Skinas is the technical support lead on the Sony 360 reality audio team, and he's collaborating with Audio Futures in the development and support of the WalkMix Creator 360 RA production tools that so many people are talking about lately. In the past, he was involved with the development of workstations such as the Sonoma DSD recorder, the Studer Diaxis. He also heads up, and the original Waveframe DAW. In addition to his work with 360 Reality Audio, he also heads up the Super Audio Center in Boulder, Colorado, and is involved in DSD audio production for Super Audio CD. Obviously, Gus is another person with a huge passion for sound. Moderating again is multiple immersive audio album Grammy-winning engineer, Michael Romanowski, Romo. So our format today will be the same as our previous webinars, which means about a half hour of presentation and another half hour of Q&A. So be sure to put your questions in the Zoom Q&A function. If you've been on these webinars before, you know we really want to hear from you. So now, Romo, it's your turn. Take it away.
Thank you, Maureen. Really appreciate that. Thank you for the kind introduction, and great to kick off another series, and this time focusing on Sony 360 RA audio. This will be fantastic. So Hiro and Gus, please join us. Really great to have you guys here. Thank you for taking the time to come and explain, demystify, and exemplify, if that's a word, 360 audio. And I guess I think Hiro, I think you're going to start. So if you'd like to, we want to just jump right in. Yeah, as Maureen had said, quick reminder, anybody that has questions, please carry along into the Q&A section, and we will get to that toward the end.
Okay, so I share the screen. So can you see this? It's okay?
Looks great.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Again, thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to explain about 360 reality audio. So as Maureen explained, I'm now in charge for the 360 reality audio promoting here in United States. Basically, I'm located in Los Angeles area, so I'm doing this with Gus Skinas and our team. So today, just the first time of the 360 reality audio inside the mix. So I think many people understand that what is 360 reality audio, but so those who don't understand or don't know about this, so I'd like to give information about what is 360 reality audio, kind of general information. So starting with this. Okay, so all of you know this is kind of a history of the music listening experience. So before stereo here, so we have like a monaural era, but mainly nowadays, until nowadays, we are mostly listening music by stereo. Then in mid 90, so surround format like a 5.1 is coming to the consumer format, including DVD and also Super Audio CD as well. Getting into the 2000, so any different kind of immersive sound is introduced. Then now we are introducing 360 reality audio. Actually, here in the United States, 2019 is the start. So, of course, speaker experience is totally, dependent on the channel based, but this 360 reality audio gives a listener to the kind of immersive experience with headphone. That is a kind of big step using Sony spatial sound technology. So I'm gonna give you little core technologies there. So we have the two core technologies to realize of the 360 reality audio. Left side hand, this is the object-based audio. So 360 reality audio employing is object-based, sound technology. Not using a channel-based audio or ambisonic. So all the sound object has not only just the audio data, it's like a position data and moving data. So that can be inside the 360 sound object and can be decoded and rendered. So that is one of the core technologies. Then right side hand is a personalized HRTF technology. To realize like an immersive experience with a headphone, so this is very important, technology, all of you may know. So to better experience with consumer people, so we have some kind of application to personalize using an ear picture for both sides. So that those two technology is behind of the 360 DIT audio. Then I'm going to talk about the contents a little bit. So nowadays, over 15,000 songs are available. Just take a look at all the jacket artwork here. So major artists, frontline, and also legendary catalogs and contents are very, all available. And one good thing for you to know is that this year's Grammy Award. So, yay, Michael. So this is the best immersive album winner went to Alicia Keys' album Alicia. So this is, produced and directed of the, Anne Minshari and George Massenberg, Eric Schilling, and Michael Romanowski, and as a team working on it, then got a winner. So we really appreciate this is a 360 reality audio format. It sounds amazing. Thank you so much. So how you listen the 360 reality audio music? So there are services. So left to right, Amazon Music, Deezer, Tidal, and Nugs.net. So left three services, Amazon, Deezer, Tidal. They are the regular kind of subscription, music, streaming services. You can listen of music out of the smartphone and headphone. Right side, Nugs.net. This is a live performance oriented, streaming services. So currently, 360 reality audio is audio only music only streaming services, but Nugs.net just started over video with 360 reality audio streaming at their service. So now we are developing over the how it's gonna be. It's not easy to make or something. So I think not only just a music experience with video experience with 360 reality audio will come. And what kind of product you can enjoy? So very important things available for playback on any types of headphone, including overhead, earbuds, and wireless or wired with cord. So any kind of headphones works because our streaming service, we provided a SDK. It's like a developer kit. It's including a virtualized, technology. That's why without personalized, it's kind of a generic experience with like a immersive out of head experience with any pair of headphones. But of course, we are providing of a personalization experience. So that is with certified headphone. So here's a product. So Sony is in kind of a, started this music format. So headphone and kind of a single bodied speakers, smartphone, home theater, and a soundbar. And not only from us, Amazon Echo Studio, Audio Technica headphone and wireless earbuds, Sennheiser Ambeo and Macintosh processor. So those other companies is already studied as a certified products, so it can enjoy is a 360 DIT audio, and more coming, including like a headphone, smartphone, receiver, and speakers, and soundbar, of course. Maybe car, I don't know. So now it's my concluded my presentation. So we Sony is the we'd like to provide over the ecosystem with this 360 DIT audio. So for creator side, creating a 360 mix for the very immersive music experience, and for the streaming service such as Amazon, Deezer, Tidal, Nugget.net, so streaming service can provide over the new music experience. Also, playback side, not only just us, many other manufacturers can provide over the 360 compatible certified products. So we'd like to establish this ecosystem with 360 DIT audio as a new music experience. So this is my presentation. Now it's a time to gas maybe.
Yeah. Thank you, Hiro. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great job.
I'm going to share my screen.
And as a reminder to folks, while you're bringing your screen up, this is the first of 4 parts that we have scheduled for this. So we're going to do an overview for everybody, and then we will, to get a handle on perhaps if you're not familiar with the format, or to fill in some gaps of potential information, and then we will dig in deeper on some of these topics moving forward. With that, Gus, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Take it away.
Okay, well, I'd like to talk about what it takes to use these tools to create 360 audio in the studio and on your laptop with headphones, and take you through a brief overview of the software. We're going to get into it in more detail in a later session, but we'll just kind of breeze through it today. So first thing to consider is the DAW that you're going to be using and the plugin software that you're going to be using. And what we're talking about is the 360 RA, or the 360 Walk Mix Creator. This is software made by Audio Futures, and it works on Pro Tools, Ableton, Studio One, Reaper, Sequoia, Cubase, Logic, Nuendo, and it works on both the Windows platform and the Mac platform. It's also an M1 native plugin, so if your DAW supports that, it'll be nice and fast. And the hardware that we need, we need a speaker system. The recommended speaker system for the studio, it's based on the ITU 5-channel configuration. So basically the center is 0 azimuth, the right is minus 30, right? It's kind of backwards from what you would think. And the rears are 110 in both directions. And you take that ear level layer and you add one up on top and another one on the bottom. So on the bottom here, we're not using back ones, but on the top we have a duplicate of the ear level system. So basically it's 9 speakers in the front, 4 speakers in the back, and the elevation is 30 degrees to the upper ones, and recommended elevation is -20 for the lower ones. There's a chart here of tolerances. These are the recommendations of exactly where the speakers go. Oh, let me get that little laser. Okay, so these are the recommendations of where exactly the speakers go. And over here, elevation, sorry, these are the elevation, and this is the azimuth recommendations. But you have a good degree of latitude as to where you place your speakers. It doesn't have to be right on those spots. And in cases where we might be sharing a room with Atmos speakers, we can share speakers. They may not be in exactly the place where you want, but we can make it work out using these tolerances. What you would do is you'd take measurements of your speakers, put that information into WalkMix. WalkMix will render for where your speakers are to create the right listening environment. I'm sorry. The devices we recommend, a 16-channel device is pretty perfect for it. There are 13 speakers. There are 2 channels for headphone playback. The headphone playback has to be part of the device that you choose in WalkMix. And the last one could be for sub if your audio device is actually handling the bass management. And common multi-channel audio device types, Dante, MADI, Thunderbolt, USB 3, and HDX can be used as long as it's available to you as a core audio device. If you're using the DSPs in the HDX, it's not available as a core audio device to the best of my knowledge. So you would have to not be using the HDX for anything else. Some options for audio devices. This one here at the top, I have that in my studio. It's a Grace M908. It has a nice controller. It handles bass management, room EQ, can output to both analog and digital speakers. So we've used those in a few studios. There's the RME MADI device, the Ferrofish. That's the 16-channel. I think both Dante and MADI. Of course, any Pro Tools device can be used. And this is a new one I just found, the Motu. So it looks like a 16-channel that can be controlled via USB or Thunderbolt. I haven't tried that one yet, but I'd like to.
Gus, you mentioned something when you were talking about the speakers, and you said if you're doing bass management and all. Do you want to really quickly touch on, people are familiar with beds and objects? Do you want to, will you touch on that for just a moment? Because you said
I was going to get into that in another slide, but I should mention.
Great. Okay, we'll wait for that.
360 format. Okay. It doesn't have a bass channel. So if we bring in a mix and there's a sub channel in the mix, we turn that into an object. We place it low, so it's cool. It sounds like the bass is coming from the floor up there. And it becomes an object in the 360 space. But we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the next page.
Perfect.
This page is an example of 360 studio 13-channel studio installations with bass management. Not a sub channel, but bass management. The one on the left is a Germano studio in New York. It is actually in their recording room, their live room. They've put speakers on the trellises above and floor standing speakers below. They bring them in for 360 sessions and take them out when they're recording. The one in the middle is Hiro's room, where he's talking to us from, and that's a dedicated 13-channel room for 360 production. And the one on the right is 5020 in Miami. Also, you can see it's a dedicated room for 360. And you see each of these studios, they're trying to create a sphere where the top ones are kind of in, then the middle one is out, the bottom ones are in a little bit. So you're basically creating a sphere of sound with the 360 speakers. Here are some examples of studios that were Atmos, and speakers were added to these studios to make them compatible with both formats. The first two, Valhalla Studios in New York, it has this wonderful, beautiful fixed console right in the middle, but it blocks where the center bottom speaker would be. So we added this top one here in the center and these two bottom ones, and we came up with a custom profile that creates a phantom bottom, because if there were a speaker behind that fix, you'd never hear it. And if you might notice that these bottom ones, they're out a little bit further than they should be. They really should be right under this column here. But because of the tolerance we have, we can put them out there. We can tell WalkMix where they are, and the render works fine. The middle one,
Gus, let me real quick.
Sure.
You may catch this in another in another slide, so I don't want to
Yeah.
preempt something like that. But you mentioned custom profile. Do you want to talk about that for a second and let people know that that's how that's done?
We will be getting into that in another slide.
Great.
But like I mentioned before, there's a tolerance. If you're not right on the speaker positions that are listed as the optimal ones, and you move a speaker a little bit, as long as you measure it, azimuth, elevation, and enter that data into WalkMix, and I'll show you in another slide where that happens, then WalkMix is rendering for where your speakers are properly. And anyway, there's Flower Records. That's Greg Penny there. And we did almost the same thing with him. One top, two bottoms. And we added the same kind of speakers that he was using. And then we did something completely different at Blackbird in Nashville. This is George Massenberg's room that I remember from the past. And in this room, there's a big Atmos system on the front wall. And we installed a complete new system on the back wall with a new computer, with a new audio device. We used the Grace 908 in that room too. However, in this room, we're not using any bass management. We installed the Genelec Hiro, what are they again? I forget the model numbers, but the largest one speaker.
8361.
Right. 8361s. They have wonderful bass. We didn't need subs. And in this case, the bass comes from where it actually comes from, and there's nothing pulling it in another direction. And it's like your headphone. You don't have a sub in your headphone. The bass comes from in an immersive system wherever it's coming from. So this is a very nice way to mix for headphones, and you've got the Atmos right behind you. If you're working on one project and you're doing both Atmos and 360, you can spin your chair, tweak the Atmos, spin your chair this way, and then tweak the 360.
I love that.
That's really nice
folks that have
situation.
enough room that can be able to do that. That's a very clever solution.
Well, you know, George thought of all of this way back when.
He's a sharp one.
And going on, this is the software. We're going to do a brief overview of the software. So this is the plugin interface. This is the human interface for the plugin. The plugins can go on your channel tracks. They can go on your aux tracks. And the plugin goes on your master track, and that gets dedicated to be the renderer. Everything is happening behind the scenes with the plugin and the renderer and the audio going to the speakers, not using any buses in the DAW. The plugin receives the audio. It sends it to the renderer. After the plugin, there's nothing because it intercepts the audio and sends it to the renderer. That's one reason why some people may want to use aux tracks for the plugins, so that they can have their faders on on the channels. In many DAWs, there are no post fader inserts. Nuendo, though, that has post fader inserts, so you don't have to bother with the auxes on that one. Anyway, from this interface, you can choose the object that you want to work on, or in your DAW, you can just click on the plugin, and that will select the object that you want to work on. So if I clicked on the plugin for this channel here, it'll be selected in the sphere. It'll be selected in the levels where you can adjust levels, and you can just take hold of it and move it. You can also jump to any other object and start working with that. It's a unified interface where all your objects that you're working with are in one view, and you can manipulate them that way, automate them, automate the levels, all of that.
Gus, is there a number of, is there a limit to the number of channels in an object?
No, actually you could have, well, there's probably a limit, but you can have mono, stereo, multi-channel objects. I don't know the limit of the multi-channel objects. It probably is.
But you could have quad objects, for example. You
Yes.
could have a 5.1 object.
That's right.
You could do a 7.1 object.
That's right. Yeah, correct. So as I mentioned before, we're not using the DAWs, busing or anything to get to the speakers. Once we turn on the plugin, it is actually sending audio to your speaker, your audio device, and to your speakers. And in the settings, you would choose your device here, a core audio device. In my case, it's a Dante virtual sound card. And this question about having hardware delay, if your device does have a delay, like the Grace can, you would click that, and it wouldn't use your distance measurements to the speakers. Anyway, let me move on from that. Okay. WalkMix sends audio directly to your audio system, and that choice is made here in the settings page. One thing to note is that whatever device you select in WalkMix, you should not be using it as your sound engine in your DAW. They'll interfere. We were talking about before the different speaker layouts. The recommended one, of course, is the 13 channels with the 9 in the front and the 4 in the back. But if you have a room with a different layout, there are also other speaker options available that can match your room. And again, if it's not exactly the 904 2B layout and your speakers are in different positions, you can enter that information here at the bottom: azimuth, elevation, distance or radius to the speaker. And all of this gets used in calculating the rendering of the speaker playback. There's also different ways to view this interface. This is the most popular view, which is the 3D perspective view. And here you can grab the sphere, turn it around any way you want, and grab objects and move them around. There's also a top view. There's a front view, and there's also the option to have 2 views of your selection. So in this case, you've got the perspective view where you can grab something like these gold ones right here. And on the top view, you can see, are they in the back? Are they in the front? That's just extra assurance. After you use this for a while, you'll know what's in the back and what's in the front and how to move them around and get there. There is also a view called the focus view. And in this case, the WalkMix creator takes over the entire screen. You've got the mixer at the bottom where you can automate and change your levels. The meters are built into the mixer strips. Here's the master fader. There's a limiter you have access to, and the limiter actually controls all the source objects. So it's a global limiter on all the source objects. Over here, you have a little button that looks like a little headphone. If you click that, you switch between listening to the speakers and binaurally on headphones. And this is a new thing in this new software version that's coming out shortly. We can now bring in a stereo reference track that we can compare our immersive mix to while we're mixing. You can use this little handle here to define the start position to sync it up to your immersive mix. And then this A-B button, A is your immersive mix, B is green, and when you press it, and that would be your stereo reference mix. Here in the loudness panel of the reference page, we have that A-B switch, and we have loudness meters for your immersive mix, which are the blue meters, and for your reference mix, or for the reference file, which are the green meters. So here we're looking at integrated loudness for your immersive mix compared to the reference mix. And of course, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reference mix is always louder.
I can't recall a case where the reference mix has actually been softer.
So I don't, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so yeah, we already discussed that.
Yeah.
And while you're in focus view or any other view, you also have a teeny itty bitty tiny A/B switch over here. If it's blue, you're listening to your immersive mix. If it's green, you're listening to your reference file. So while you're mixing, you can be going back and forth comparing the reference to your mix. And you can do that both with headphones or speakers. So if you're listening to speakers and you're going back and forth, you're hearing the reference mix, you're hearing your speaker mix. If you've selected headphones, when that's blue, that's selected, you're listening to your binaural playback, and then when you switch, you're listening to your reference mix on the headphones.
Great, Gus. This is a great addition, because I know this is new and this is
Oh,
a great
yeah.
addition to the software.
Yeah,
Is this
is sorely needed.
key command switchable? We be able to just,
You know, the developers tell me there are problems with key commands when using plugins. So we're running into that.
okay.
So no, right now it's just pressing the button on the screen. I
Okay.
wish it was.
Future.
Hopefully. Okay, so after you do the mix, it's time for the deliverables. And as you probably know, you go through the normal bounce process that you would go through in your DAW to bounce to disk. So you're bouncing basically a stereo bounce of the mix where you're from your stereo fader where the master plugin is. And all that is really doing is it's starting a process behind the scenes in WalkMix where it is creating all of these deliverables that you need to come up with. In the case of Sony Music, they want what they call salmon wave in 4 levels, and we're going to get to these levels in a moment. But salmon wave, it's just a collection of wave files. In level 0.5, it's 5 wave files. In level 3, it's 24 files. And a SAM file defines how those objects do, how they move, what the level is. That's the definition of what those objects are doing. So Sony Music needs that in all 4 levels. They need a 13-channel speaker render. And there's a button here for the standard 13-channel speaker render. This one will render whatever you're set up for. So if you needed to render an Atmos speaker export, you could do that here. And then they also want the binaural headphone file as well. And that's Sony Music. Now, if you're delivering directly to service providers, they may only need the MP4 or the MPEG-H. Possibly in the future, they might need ADM. So we have that too. But at the moment, only MP4 is what's being delivered to the service providers. Again, though, all 4 levels. And just to talk about what happens, these levels are actually pre-renders.
Right.
Your mix may contain 128 objects, but in the case of the deliverables to the user, they have a maximum of 24 in level 3 and a minimum of, or a maximum of 5 in the first level. That is determined by the bandwidth available. In the first level, there's 320 kilobits per second. In the highest level, it's 1536.
This is on the user side bandwidth you're talking
user
about.
side bandwidth. And yeah, if the user has full bandwidth, they're going to get the 24 channels coming to them. If not, it would be like a 5-channel pre-render. So these are pre-renders that are like mix downs from your massive immersive project for the deliverables to the end user. One other cool thing, though, is that say you only have 5 objects. Say you're only, exporting a surround master. Well, you still get all these levels, and you get all this bandwidth for just those 5 channels, and that's a nice way to deliver 5-channel music to headphones. And moving on to quality control, this also is new in this 1.4 software from Audio Futures. We have a player now. This player app gets installed when you install the new WalkMix version. And we can put the deliverables into the player and QC them. So it'll take Salmon Wave, MPEG-H, the 360 unprocessed, and any of the ADM files that we export. You can QC those before you send them on to the distributor or to Sony Music. You can also, the player also has the same functionality to connect to your speaker system or to connect to your headphone system. You've got all the speaker configurations available, the device available. Again, there's the Dante virtual sound card. And in the case of headphones, we can enter custom hearing profiles. So if you've had a custom hearing profile made of your ears in a professional studio that does that, you can pull them in here.
I think that's something we're going to talk about in a later event.
We will, yes, hopefully. And these are some examples of studios in the country that can measure your ears if you want to have it done. Gold Diggers in LA, Germano, New York, Blackbird in Nashville, Hiro's Place in Culver City, Sony Pictures, Battery Studio in New York, and 5020 in Miami. And also my studio here, we can do it here. So if anyone wants to come to Boulder, I'll measure your ears.
Yeah.
And that's it for me.
Thank you guys both. So let's, I see that there's some questions. Some of them may have been touched upon, but if anybody has any questions, remember, go to the Q&A. Let's see. Do you want to talk about, let me go through these real quick here. Let's see. Stereo, here's a question from Kevin. If I were to play back my 360 RA mix with 2.0 stereo system in the speaker settings, how would the audio be rendered to the rear when the speaker outputs are placed in front of you?
Well, it's not. If you're only playing through the speakers in the front, it's going to be down mixed to those speakers.
Cool. Thanks for that. Then here's another right above that. Is there a target level for 360 music for deliverables?
Hiro, do you know the answer to that? We have the loudness metering.
Yeah.
I don't know what the recommended level is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So previous version of the plugin software has no, loudness meter. So now we are, implemented a loudness meter in the plugin. We can see, but the target level has been, discussed at this point, because up to now the only level we should, watch of the master is the peak level. So it can be automatically done in the exporting process. But now that plugin has the loudness meter, now we are talking and maybe set the target soon.
Okay.
Not now.
And Gus, when you were talking about the showing the deliverables, if you want to go back to that screen for a minute where you're showing the salmon wave and etc. There's a button for normalizing the output level.
Right. You want me to bring that up?
Yeah, just bring that up so people can see that.
Okay.
Just to get a visual if they haven't been using it.
All right. Well, you will get this message asking whether you want to normalize the gain or not when you execute that bounce. A window will come up even before this window comes up, and it'll ask you if it should be normalized.
And I will say that I don't do that. I'll just tell you from a user standpoint, especially working on an album, to maintain the balance between tracks that have already been, the levels have already been set. So
right.
The album has a volume curve, or has a presentation along the way. Be careful of the normalizing for that very reason.
Right, but you also have this control too. So you can get your loudness where you want it and then just normalize it to make sure you're not going over that level. So in this screen here, you've got the limiter and you've got gain reduction indication here, your master level here. So you can get that all set up before you normalize. and the normalize will just make sure you're within tolerance of what needs to be delivered. I will unshare.
I see what you you think to pull it down. I'm thinking normalizing and to bring it up because I'm working usually below that. So the other way around. Kevin also asked, can you explain why the reference mix is always louder? What are some of the ways to increase the perceived loudness of 360 mixes?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I'm sorry. So Kevin had asked you, can you explain why the reference mix is always louder? What are some ways to increase the perceived loudness? I'm guessing the question is with perceived loudness on playback, you know, on systems like Tidal or some other service providers.
Well, you know, you're the better person to answer that one. The stereo masters are usually smashed to death.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a delicate balance between how much dynamic control do you do and what your overall levels are. And it's just, you know, it's good mixing techniques, and it's, you know, optimizing the available space without going over it, sonic space without going over it. And if you're normalizing, as you said, to normalize in a downward fashion, you've got tools on there to keep it from going over. And that's going to introduce some production aspects to it, though, meaning you're going to do some dynamic reduction. And I always try to be careful of that. So I think, to me, not knowing how that's going to react, something to be careful of, and rather go this way than try to use the tool to hold it back.
Yeah, they both interact.
Yeah, yeah. And Darcy brought up a question here too, and because you had just shown this, the ADM function on there is new for this new version of. Do you want to talk about the ADM and the ADM master?
Sure. Well, the ADM is basically the same thing as a salmon wave, but conforms to the ADM specification with a 360 chunk in there for identification. We will probably move to that for deliverables to Sony Music in the future. The one below it is our ADM version of the unprocessed export. So that's all of the channels. It also contains any pre-rendering information that you might have already defined, but that's everything, not just the pre-renders. That's the master ADM. The one that just says ADM, that's the 4 levels, the four pre-render levels in ADM format.
We got one package for that, essentially.
Right. That's
rather than the separate different levels.
Rather than all those files. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
so
right.
Just a cleaner version of what's already been delivered.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
And at the moment, we're really not doing anything with them, but we will be shortly.
Got it. There's a question here about with other immersive formats, simply upmixing another format such as stereo is not considered an acceptable mix. Is that the same? Is that same true for 360 RA? Is the converted upmixed ADM B wave acceptable as a deliverable?
Upmixing from a stereo?
Yeah. So it looks like upmixing, but that's going to
not
happen
up
in
to
the
me.
DAW side.
That's not up to me. I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't like it that way.
You know, I think as acceptable as in the eye of the beholder as far as that goes. If it makes the artist, if the artist is happy,
I don't know
with
the
it,
answer.
it works well.
Sorry.
Okay. Thought I would just address that.
Yeah.
Upmixing in general is not the best way to go. Sometimes it's the only option. And we have talked about this in previous versions where upmixing is, you know, sort of frowned upon. But sometimes you only have, because it's synthesizing parts, but sometimes it's the only thing you can do with some stuff, whether it's acceptable or not to, again, the artist, the label, and everybody. That's a thing. But I have seen where people are doing a little bit of a hybrid version where they may be upmixing the stereo reverb that they got as a send, or they may be upmixing some piece within the mix rather than the whole mix itself.
Yeah.
And that goes back to deliverables, and then we'll save that for a different.
Yeah, I'm not the right person to ask.
Brian asked, is all your channel limiting brick wall?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
So it's a definitive ceiling.
Yes. There's no compression ratio.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Brian. And then Eric asks what version you were showing. That was 1.4.
This was 1.4. It's coming out very shortly in the next week or so, hopefully. It's right around the corner. We had hoped to have it by this meeting.
Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing what's about to come, because it's nice to know, because some of these questions are great, because there's some things that I know some users here are using that, and
Yeah.
there's some, some new
Yeah.
features that are not available to us currently using.
Yeah. And don't forget to look for that player, because unless you go into applications and look for it, you won't know it. Or read the documentation.
Right. When in doubt, read the documentation. Well, it's nice to know that it's installed with, it's not an extra add-on, or it's not an extra piece somebody has to go get, that it's installed with it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Here's a question about Atmos files being converted to 360. You want to talk about that for a sec?
What is the question? I don't know if I know
The question is, can Atmos files be converted to 360?
The
Sort of
Hiro, you want to take that?
wide-ranging question, or
Yeah.
broad.
Yeah, well, the Atmos speaker renders certainly can be brought into 360, and they can be placed in the sphere, and that can be used. We don't have any way to bring in at this point object information with its metadata as that contains its panning information and automation. So I guess that's the answer.
Well, I will say that I get asked to do that. That's, a common thing for deliverables and working with multiple formats, at this stage. And I see Darcy on here. I imagine she's doing, she's doing the same thing. The ability to take the 714 output from an Atmos and create objects as speaker positions. And then from there, create the 360 using those speaker positions that come from the 714 output. Has
Correct.
been the most effective way to do that.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Currently.
Yes.
You actually, we were going to get back to a quick question about the custom speaker setup. You were you were to talk about how somebody could set up their own their speaker system, so that when they're listening, like measuring. Do you want to get into that for a moment about how somebody in that? Yeah.
I did show that window in the system preferences where you can enter azimuth, elevation, and distance for every speaker. And you would go through, you'd pick the base setup, you'd go through and enter each actual position for your speaker by measuring with, protractor, laser pointer, and whatever tools you have to do that. Measure the azimuth, elevation, enter those values into that page on the settings page. Should I go back to it?
Oh, maybe show it for a second. That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Let me get back to that.
Because the 360 DIT audio is based upon the object audio, so even though we have a recommendation of setting up 9 speakers on the front and 4 in the back, but it doesn't necessarily that. If we put the actual speaker position, even in symmetrical, so it works automatically. The rendering of the based upon these information.
Yeah. So here at the bottom of the speaker section of the settings page, if you start editing the azimuth, elevation, and radius, it will prompt you to create a new speaker profile. So once you go through and you enter all that information for all your speakers, here's a left, you switch to the right, center, etc. You can save that as a custom profile for your room. You can also use a custom profile in the WalkMix player. That'll show up as an option there too.
But when delivering, however, you need to, so actually there's a new checkbox in the 1.4.
Right. We don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, people don't know the first part of that.
one.
So, yeah.
Right. That's right.
Right.
All right. Stop share.
So yeah. So up until this 1.4, you could be listening to your own speaker setup, but when you needed to export the masters, you needed to revert to the 13.0.
That, and that is actually your feature. You're the one who brought it up, and that's when I pushed for it.
Oh, well, thank you.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. There's a whole long list of things I'm hoping to write behind it too, as far as things coming along. Yeah. But that's a huge feature, because if you're listening along on your own profile and you start your own speaker setup and you end up trying to export, you can do some damage, or at least not get what you expect by not having the proper output for deliverables. it's a layer of QC that's necessary. There was actually a question about QC also. And so the fact that you've got a player in there that's coming up is going to be great to be able to do that. I listen on headphones. I have an Ambio sound bar, use an NVIDIA Shield, move the files over. I listen to in different places. I'm using Architect, dropping files in to be able to play the different for my QC. I don't generally check, I will just say I don't generally check all 4 levels. I usually 0.5, the highest and the lowest, to make sure that they're working as expected, based on time available.
Yep.
Let's see if there are any other questions. Do you guys have anything you want to add while I'm looking at the questions here real quick?
Hiro, can't think of anything.
You want to talk about for a moment things, anything you may want to get into? We're getting close to getting to the end of time for this one, and this was meant as an overview to try to get into what really 360 is. Hiro, do you want to talk about Sony's view? Do you want to talk about any partnerships or any distributors, or where you're trying to get to and use for 360 and sort of focus on 360?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As I mentioned in my presentation, so Sony wants to, realize kind of a new, music experience and ecosystem utilizing this 360 reality audio. So, creator side and maybe need a, very, easy to create and handy and very, useful, creation tool. And distributor side is a very, great for the streaming and giving a new music experience. And we're gonna do this kind of new world with using this 360 technology. And the vision is the 360 is when we introduce new format so far, like Super Audio CD or some CD, so big changes happening, not only just the creation side and the listener side and like a distribution side. So almost the time, so we have to ask to the please buy new things. But at this time we learned a lot. So maybe just starting the 360 reality audio. If you have a smartphone, headphone, that's done. You can enjoy. You can start to listen. Then we'd like to expand more, better experience for everybody: creators, distributors, listeners. So we are developing each single element, like listening profile and tools, and like how to encode and decode and distribution. So every element is kind of do this in So we introduced 360 reality audio back in 2019. So we started, and getting the number of the content is increasing, which is good. But we understand more, wider, audience can enjoy this one. So that is our vision. So headphone experience with like a very immersive experience. That is a final ultimate goal. So maybe personalized is ultimate goal. Is it I can answer your question? I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, just to looking at sort of a top level view, incorporating potentially 360 and video with video presentation or live events, right, or some other other incorporations of the audio format.
Yeah, starting with the audio only, but developing with the associated video with 360 reality audio, and maybe real time encoding for the live performance here happening here, and real time streaming, and maybe it's gonna be involving like a game world or a video in a TV world. So such kind of diverse or wider usage of a 360 reality audio technology is also being discussed inside Sony.
Great, thank you. Hey, I see another question here, and actually, Brian, thanks for bringing that up, because Gus, you mentioned something. It says you mentioned not using the same output device as the same DAW. Does that mean if my Pro Tools HDX playback engine is HDX, the WalkMix output device should be different? That caught me by surprise when you said that too. Can you explain that for a moment?
Okay, so if your playback engine is HDX, yes, the WalkMix device should be getting to the speakers in a different way.
Yeah, most of the case, engineer using HDX for the sound processing. So it's very important for finalizing, finishing the mix. In that case, engineer side, should use HDX. In that case, maybe selected another playback device to communicate with the immersive sound system. That is not Walkmix Creator plugin can handle over all the signal flow after the mix is done.
Not being a Pro Tools user, I couldn't answer that. I'm
Yep.
not exactly sure about
Okay,
that.
but again, if you want to use HDX for mixing in the plugin, you have to take it out of the sound engine. And then it becomes available as a core audio device. So you can use that HDX hardware to do your immersive mix. It just can't be in, it can't be the playback engine.
I hope that answers Brian's question. Thank you. Real quick, so as we're getting
And
close to the end.
I should just
ahead.
mention one other thing.
Yep.
A lot of times, just while we're mixing in immersive, we'll make the sound engine the MacBook speakers, even though we're not using it, because we're not using the playback engine when we're mixing in the plugin.
Right. Does Walkmix, actually, is a good question here. Walkmix, is Architect going away as Walkmix takes over? Is Architect going to be, are you going to keep evolving that? Is that just a tool that we could use at the time? And now that we're moving on past that, will that still be a viable?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, maybe we can come back to that one for next time around. Hey, Maureen, welcome back.
Hi.
Gus, Hiro, thank
Wow.
you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot of information and very future thinking as well. That's an interesting aspect to it, Hiro, of the collaboration between sound and video, and that Sony does both of those, and what's going on in the big picture. So thanks for that too. So just great to have Gus here. Great to have Hiro here. Michael, as always, does a great job of moderating, and I appreciate everybody who comes to watch and bring their questions. So we'll be back in, I think, 2 weeks, right, guys?
Correct.
2 weeks, same time, with another episode here of Sony 360 Reality Audio. Hope to see you then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happy mixing from now till then.
Be creative.
Thank you.
Bye.